Welcome to another great edition of Mississippi Stories. I am your host, Marshall Ramsey. I am editor-at-large and editorial cartoonist right here at Mississippi Today. By the way, speaking of Mississippi Today, you can check out great coverage at MississippiToday.org. Hey, I've got a special guest today. Actually, you are very special because you're my boss's boss. It's kind of exciting. The new CEO and president of Deep South Today, Warwick Sabin, is with us today. Warwick, thank you so much.
Oh my goodness.
Man, it's so good to see you. I don't normally give the handshake, but I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm glad you got the right jacket on.
That's right. Short. No, total coincidence, but I'm honored to be with you. Thanks for asking me on. I'm glad to be in Jackson. So yeah,
we're glad you're here. And by the way, just to let everybody know, I ambushed him in the hall on the way when you got off the elevator. Say, hey, let's do this interview. So I caught you flat-footed, but thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
No, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, and you came and you talked to the team a little bit about some of the plans and so forth. Yeah. Tell everybody a little bit about you, because you've got a great background. New York guy, and you ended up in the South.
I did.
And you ended up Truman Scholar, Marshall Scholar. You've been in the nonprofit world, the publishing world. You've been elected. You've run for office and not been elected. I mean, what have you not done? You know, Sabin, last name. I was thinking, you know, you could coach football, you could do that, but your brother actually is a sports writer.
He is a sports writer.
So that's kind of cool.
Covered Alabama football.
That's right. Sabin covered Sabin. I love that. Although the guy over in Alabama spells it wrong.
That's right. He does spell his name with the wrong letter.
Yeah, bless his heart. You know, he could buy a vowel.
He needs to.
He could do that. Tell us a little bit about you, though, because, I mean, like I said, you've got such a, to quote Liam Neeson, an interesting set of skills, or a particular set of skills to be able to do this.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I feel really fortunate because I've been able to follow my passions in life, and you know, and obviously it's been a bit of a windy road, but in a way that has kept my life really interesting. And you mentioned I'm a Southerner by choice. You know, I grew up in New York, but I came down to Arkansas for college.
Now, that's a great story in itself, how you got here.
Yeah, I like this. You're asking me to tell it. Sure. So I did Boys State in New York and was selected to represent New York at Boys Nation. This is an American Legion civics program. And it's famous somewhat because President Clinton met John F. Kennedy as a Boys Nation senator from Arkansas, got that famous photo. I got to meet Bill Clinton 30 years to the day that he met John F. Kennedy when I was a Boys Nation senator. So had a pretty profound impact on me. And had that not happened, I wouldn't have opened the letter from Arkansas that was offering me a full scholarship and free trip to visit. And I visited Fayetteville and I fell in love with it. Apologies to any of the fans out there who don't love the Arkansas Razorbacks, but I certainly felt really lucky I got to go to school there.
You did. Yeah. Clinton. Clinton was here not long ago. They had a big tribute to William Winter, our former governor here, and him and Haley Barbour there. And Bill Clinton's up there going, Bill Clinton. I was just like, oh my gosh, he's just like what you expect on Saturday Night Live. He was fantastic. But it was really inspiring to you, and it got you really involved in public service.
That's right. I'd never really been exposed to politics before I met him, and then this idea that you could engage in that way, and especially when I went to Arkansas, and as we all know, I mean the opportunities to participate in public service, to have people embrace you in that experience. And I was student body president at the University of Arkansas, and I got to intern at the White House in the summers because this was back in the 1990s.
That's amazing right there. So
yeah, and you just get to be a fly on the wall and absorb things that ultimately give you sort of some grounding and some lessons. And I didn't necessarily know I was going to get the opportunity to serve as an elected official in the future.
Yeah.
But after I was in college, I got to work on Capitol Hill for a couple of years. And then I went back to Arkansas to actually help President Clinton start his foundation, got involved in journalism, and then later on actually got elected to the state legislature.
That was pretty amazing because you were there at an interesting time when the actually party affiliation, the majority flipped. So you got to experience that too. You did 3 terms, right?
I did 3 terms.
3 terms, yeah.
Yeah, and it was exciting for me. I again got elected as a Democrat, but I mean, I think we all know that in states that are small like Mississippi and like Arkansas, people as people, and what's really important is respecting the folks that you're working with. Really working to kind of understand where they're coming from and where you can compromise, because that's really where our system comes from. And in a way, it was a blessing because my first term, as you mentioned, there was some transition and kind of the history of the state and its partisan affiliations. But my first term, the proportion in the House of Representatives was 51 to 49, and so that really forced us to work together if we're going to get anything done. And and I came in with a really nice cohort of young people, and we did a lot of good things for the state.
You did public policy. You were very involved in that. you got into journalism. You thought initially you're going to be, but you end up, I want you to talk about that a little bit as well.
Sure.
And then also too, you've been in the nonprofit world. So it seems like I said, you have got a skill set that seems to be perfect for nonprofit journalism.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I did want to be a journalist growing up. I really love to write and I like to absorb information. I like to ask questions. But I just kept kind of finding myself with these other opportunities. And one of the things I liked about it was that these opportunities at the time were very challenging. They were kind of out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
When I first got into nonprofit work, you have to raise money to run a nonprofit. I never asked anybody for a dime.
Oh,
And, and then the idea of, going into politics and having to ask people for their votes. I mean, believe it or not, like this was not my natural inclination.
I would say you don't strike me as being very shy.
No, but I mean, I was, when I started out, I was a pretty kind of nerdy kid and very much in the books. But I like I said, I was aware of that to the extent that like I actually did really want to stretch myself. I mean, I'm, even in sports, I always wanted to try the thing that, seemed the hardest. And I feel like, you've only got one life to live, and the opportunity to, do things that are a little bit out of your comfort zone are important in order to grow. And even, coming down south was a big part of that. Like a lot of people thought I was crazy to, leave New York to go down to the south. But to me, it was the biggest blessing of my life because I've learned so much, I've grown so much. I feel like I have an understanding that the folks I grew up with in New York will never have. And that's given me, so much joy in my life.
This is a tough question, but what was your favorite thing about the South when you lived down here?
Well, just the people and how nice everybody was. It was different. I know that's a stereotype, but it's just true. I mean, I have this story about when I showed up at my dorm at the University of Arkansas, and I guess I didn't even know that I was supposed to have like sheets and pillowcases and things for the bed. And it was really late at night, and this guy that I just met who lived across the hall, he like offered to drive me to Walmart. As we're checking out at Walmart, the cashier was being so nice in the way that everybody obviously is nicer. But obviously I still remember it many decades later because I was like, this is so different and so wonderful, and I'm really glad I'm here.
It's funny because I'm from Atlanta, so I'm from the South, but my wife and I lived in San Diego, and I got the job offer to come to Mississippi, and that is the very reason why I took this job, was the fact that there was a lot of craziness on my interview, but when I got back, my wife said, why should we move there? I said, the people.
It's the people.
It's the people. Yeah.
And to me, I mean, relationships are the thing that bring you the most joy in life. I mean, and I love getting to know all kinds of people. Like the more I can sort of be exposed to ideas I've never thought about before or perspectives, it makes, again, I'm the one who benefits. So I feel so fortunate again to now be back in the South and doing this work.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Let's talk about journalism for a second. Like I said, I started out in family newspapers, went to corporate newspapers. Now, for the last 5 years, I've had the blessing of being here in Mississippi Today.
Yes.
Nonprofit journalism. And obviously the internet has blown up the world to cause disruption. It's changing now almost at a more rapid pace. It's almost like if you're not changing now, literally every 5 days, it seems like you're behind.
Yeah.
Talk about nonprofit journalism and why it is so important today.
So it's interesting because when I published the Oxford American magazine, we were a nonprofit, and we were doing that at a time when there wasn't really hardly any nonprofit publications out there. So there was an education process, and I think now people are getting more familiar with it, but it's still a relatively new thing. And the reason is because, for the 20th century, which was sort of the heyday of, daily newspapers and radio and TV, where we were surrounded by really robust, excellent news organizations. These were for-profit businesses because they could make money. They could
controlled the channel.
Well, and they could sell classified ads, and people had to buy ads in the paper if they wanted to sell things, and people had to buy the newspaper if they wanted to get the news. Like you had, customers, subscribers, you had advertisers, you had all this money that you can make and in a for-profit setting. And then to your point, the internet shows up, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, all of that gets imploded all at the same time, because on the subscriber customer side, people are like, well, I can get news for free, I can get information for free, so why would I pay for it? And then the other side, you have the big sort of, tech companies like Google and Facebook that get in between the advertiser and the actual publication. So they're getting all the advertising revenue and the publication's getting none. So you've seen all these local newspapers in particular go out of business all over the country, but especially here in the South. And not just local newspapers, but radio stations, TV stations, and some big newspapers. And for a while there, people are like, okay, I'm good. I'm getting some information on Facebook, Instagram, the internet, whatever it is, TikTok even. But I think people are waking up to the fact that sometimes that information's not good, sometimes it's not reliable, sometimes it's not real. You need to have folks reporting the news that you can trust. And if you want to participate in your community, your culture, your politics, your society, you have to have not just the information to be able to participate on a civic nature, but you need to know there are folks out there reporting that are holding people in power accountable so that they can't take advantage of you as a consumer, as a citizen, whether it's government, private sector, et cetera. And so because the for-profit model doesn't really work anymore in news, the nonprofit model is showing up as an opportunity to resurrect news, right? Because we understand now, this is a civic good. It's like all of the other civic institutions we have in our country that make our democracy possible.
That's right.
And you cannot have a democracy that's functional and sustainable without reliable, objective news reporting and information. Obviously, Mississippi Today is proving that here in Mississippi. And we want to see that flourish all across the South.
Yeah, I've always said that we have such a great team here, and it's really fun for me to get to go out and talk about them and brag on them a little bit. I said I'm like an old Methodist circuit rider. I'm out in the country talking about the good things. But I think what's amazing to me is even in the 5 years that I've been here, just for people saying, what is Mississippi Today? Instead of now it's, okay, tell me about Anna Wolf's story yesterday, or they are to the point on specific. So it is good that, like I said, that we exist a little bit. Deep South Today. Tell everybody what that's about, because it's obviously the news deserts aren't just here in Mississippi, it's all across the South.
Yeah, but I will say, first and foremost, we're building off the success of Mississippi Today and its credibility and the good work that it's done. It's sort of proven the model. It says that you can have nonprofit news, it can have real impact, it can serve its community. It's doing that in Mississippi. So how do we do more of that for more people in the South? And that's the idea behind Deep South Today. We are creating an organization that has sort of the business wherewithal to sustain not just Mississippi Today, but other newsrooms in the South and achieve some scale, some efficiencies that we know that will be good stewards of the funds that are donated to us. Because again, we're a nonprofit, we're a charity. So just like all of the other things that the good people who are watching this support, the news needs that same kind of support in order to thrive. But we want to make sure that we're using that money as efficiently as we can and to support as much good news reporting as we can. And we want to do it in a place that has a lot of need, which happens to be our region in the South. We have lost a lot of good news reporting and we need to build it back.
You're based in New Orleans?
I am. I'm based in New Orleans. And we have a publication there called Verite News.
Yes, which does incredible work.
It does.
They have a great team down there too.
They're a wonderful team. They're having a real impact in New Orleans. They're going to grow. And again, so that it's the sister publication of Mississippi Today. And then we'll look to build more publications as we go forward.
That's fantastic. You're about 100 days into the job.
Yes, that's right.
So what are some of your impressions so far of what the work that we're doing here a little bit, and about some things that you see that we may go?
Well, I'll reiterate that I feel very fortunate to be part of an organization that includes Mississippi Today and the good work that they're doing, because y'all won a Pulitzer Prize this year.
Yes.
People are, to your point, very aware of the reporting that's happening. And so it's easy for me now to start conversations and people go, yeah, I know Mississippi Today. They're doing good work. They did that reporting, and it helps us sort of build forward. I would say that there's also good fortune in the fact that people are waking up nationally to the need for nonprofit news. They see what's happened over the last several years and understand that we cannot sustain a democracy in a healthy way without good news and information. And so we've got some big national institutions that are putting support behind this.
Yes.
That's filtering down to the local level where local folks understand, we've got to get involved as well. And so we're going to, catch that momentum, and we're going to build something that really works for the people in our region. Just, again, I think to get what we all deserve to have as citizens, which is just, good, reliable information that helps us get through our day-to-day lives and understand what's happening in our communities so we can participate as citizens.
A lot of people talk about the media, but really, honestly, there's a big difference between the media and good journalism. People, I think, are catching on the fact that, like you said, it's very important for people to know what's going on at the state capitol, what's going on in their local community, because really, at the end of the day, we can be fascinated with whatever the president's doing or the former president, but if we're not paying attention to what's going on locally, that's what's really matters.
Yeah, and I want to jump all over that, because you're right, like the media can be a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it can be entertainment, it can be things that catch people's attention. And the easiest way to make money in media and to catch people's attention is to do things that appeal to people's fear or their hatred or their sort of, partisan affiliations one way or the other. So, we see that kind of in our culture. We see that like the folks that are doing really well from a for-profit basis in the media are doing that. Yeah. What we're doing is we're trying to give people the healthy information that they need to live their lives, to your point. So, we're feeding them the fruits and vegetables, I was just about to say. And that couldn't be more important because, again, I think people really are starting to understand that, like, you can't live off the junk food and expect to, have a good life. There are certain things we took for granted for a long time here in this country. Yeah. And, unfortunately, part of living in a democracy is relearning lessons sometimes that maybe, you didn't know you were going to have to relearn. And the lesson that we're relearning right now is news and information matters. Yeah. Good journalism matters. It affects the quality of our lives, the quality of our economy, by the way. I mean, a community can't thrive without good news reporting being part of everybody's day-to-day life. And so we are bringing that back to all the communities that we serve.
I would ask you something like, where do you see us being in 5 years? But I mean, good grace, where do you see us being in 6 months? That's what I said, it's changing at such a rapid pace. Yeah. But what are some things you'd like to see Mississippi Today to do? Or, what are some things like, I know live events is big. And
yes.
I've always said if people know you, they'll pay attention to you. So it's always great to get out in the community. But what are some ideas you have? Well,
so, obviously we want to sort of live into our mission and fulfill our mission, which is, again, making sure that we're providing good news and information for everybody. Right. And so, Mississippi Today, even being as big a newsroom as it is now, still has room to grow. I mean, when you think about all the communities around the state and where we can be doing more reporting and what issues we could be doing more in-depth reporting about, whether that's healthcare, education, criminal justice, all of that. There's a tremendous opportunity here in Mississippi to just continue to grow the work that we do. And then to your point, I think community engagement is really important. One thing that I learned at the Oxford American and some of the other positions that I've held is that, you really want to make news, information, issues sort of alive and resonant for people in their day-to-day lives. And sometimes that means not just publishing it as words on a page, but bringing it to people in their community, allowing them to participate either on the stage as part of a dialogue or conversation, or in the audience where they can interact with people who are newsmakers or people who are thought leaders. And more, I think we can provide that value and that service because clearly there are a lot of places where that's not happening. And we have places that benefit from that tremendously, and they tend to be big cities. So what can we do in the geographies that we serve to bring, again, the news, information, people and personalities, all of that into sort of 3 dimensions for people all over the South. And again, we're looking, again, we don't have any preconceived notion of where we're going to be or how we're even going to fulfill our mission. But what we do know is that there's great need with all of the news deserts across the South for information that is not only objective, again, and reliable, but inclusive. Because a lot of people just don't see themselves in the news. They don't see their communities being reported about. They don't see, people, that are reporting, in ways that I guess, resonate or are understandable. And so we need to do a better job also of making sure that people see themselves in the reporting that we're doing.
Any final thoughts?
Just that I am so excited and honored to be part of this organization. Yeah. I mean, again, Mississippi Today has really set the gold standard, not just in this state, but for nonprofit journalism nationally. It's given us a great foundation to build from. We've got a lot to look forward to in terms of what we're building in New Orleans through Verite News and what we're going to be able to do kind of to grow the Deep South Today organization. So stay tuned. And, we look forward also to getting great feedback from our community of readers and listeners, the people that, Marshall, you've done such a great job of communicating with in the time that you've been with us as well.
Thank you. Now, I am not our mutual friend, John T. Edge, but next time you're up this way, I'll make sure anytime you want to go speak someplace in Mississippi, I'll make sure I'll show you where the best restaurants are around the state.
That's a deal. I'll take you up on that for sure.
I gained 40 pounds when I moved here.
Okay, well, that I don't want.
Okay. Well, I'm sure nothing will be friend. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh my goodness.
This has been great. And like I said, I'm welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to what's to come.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, thank you too for watching. And if you'd like to check out any past episodes, you can go to MississippiToday.org. Click the like button if you want to see more as well. Hey, thank you for watching Mississippi Stories. I'm Marshall Ramsey. We'll see you next time.